It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. So I work at this company called Lookback, and as Ollie said, we're running a production app built with Meteor. Yes, thank you. Okay, so we have a website called lookback.io, and it's entirely built with Meteor. And today I will tell you a little bit about what Lookback is, and I'll give you some technical details on how we implemented the list view that we're using to display all the data that our users upload to our servers. If you want to, you can follow me on Twitter, or you can watch my GitHub profile. Well, I did some Django stuff that I'm not very proud of, so don't look at those repos. All the slides will be available afterwards, and I'll also write a blog post with some more details on the subject that I'm bringing up. So if you want to take notes, go ahead, but otherwise it will be available afterwards. So first of all, or maybe first of all, how many of you are actively using Meteor? And that's like more than 10 hours a week, or so? Okay. And how many of you have never used Meteor at all? A couple of guys. Okay. That's good. All right, so this is our site. What we do is that we provide iOS developers with an SDK so that they can record what's going on in their app when someone is using it. And what we do more specifically is that we record the screen, where the user touches, we record the camera, and also the microphone. And together that makes up for like the entire user experience of using the app. And then we upload all this to our servers and display it to whoever wants to look at it, as long as they have proper access. So this is my friend Vanessa that you see over here, and if I hadn't muted her, you'd hear her speaking. And I'm not sure if you can see it, but you see that we're displaying where she's touching. Yes? No? Yeah. Yes, perfect. There's a timeline here to the left that's really beautiful. You can imagine that. And so when I log into this app, some way we have to display everything that our clients have recorded and show it to them. So the way we do that is we have a list view within our app. And in this case, it's the Facebook app and the Facebook team. It's not a real Facebook team, it's actually us recording a Facebook app, has collected 6 experiences. So we're just showing that in this list view. And on the left-hand side are a couple of filters. So say that I only want to see the experiences recorded by the user Jonathan at lookback.io. I just press here and everything updates. And I press here again and it's deselected. And if you're building a list view with Meteor and you have a very small set of data, usually it's just fine to send everything to the client and let the client figure out what the filter should be, because then the client knows that, okay, so we got this user called Jonathan at lookback.io, let's put him here in the filters. But if you have huge amounts of data, like another app that I'll show you. So this is our test app, and it has 600 experiences. And there are some more customers who have thousands and thousands of experiences uploaded. You can't really send all of those experiences down to the client because the load time would be just too great. And also puts a bit of load on the server, because Meteor does this really clever thing where it syncs the servers with all the clients. And to do that, the server has to know what's already sent down to the clients, so it knows what to update when something changes. And it does that by keeping everything in memory. So the more things you send down to the client, the more load you put on the server. So you want to be kind of restrictive about what you send down to the client. And we do it like this. We send about 40 experiences to start with. And then the user can just scroll down here. And at the end, there's a little load more button. And you can just press that, and it's loading more. Okay, very nice. And so how is this implemented? Well, this is kind of basic. The ones that have never used Meteor, did you like read up on the documentation a bit? And are you familiar with this subscribe and publish methods? Yeah, perfect. So what we do is that we have a session variable that stores a limit, and that's the limit of the amount of experiences that we subscribe to. And also we have a publication that publishes as many experiences as the client requests. And the nice thing with Meteor here is you can wrap things in this auto-run function. And if there's a session value in here, and that gets changed, this whole code block will rerun. So we can let our templates decide how many experiences we want to subscribe to. And when the template decides, hey, it's time to change the limit, this code will rerun, and we will subscribe to more experiences. Oh, sorry about this one. So in the template, it's pretty easy. This is the load more button that you saw before, below the filter, below the recordings. And we just attach an event handler to that button that says whenever the user presses the button, we change the limit and increase it by 20. So that's a really simple way of loading data onto the client. Oh, that's the wrong key. Okay, but that introduces another problem. If we don't send all the experiences down to the client doesn't know what it can filter on. Because, well, here's my friend Nevin. He's the co-founder of this company, and he's been recording a lot. But if he was the one recording the last 40 experiences, then only his name will show up when we first subscribe to the experiences. So in some way, we have to figure out what our filters should be. And there are a couple of ways to do this. I guess you could use a native, just the usual Mongo connector and run an aggregation on the server and figure out, okay, how many or what unique users recorded something. But that wouldn't be reactive because Meteor doesn't support that yet. So what we did instead was that we created a new collection called filters, and into those filters we just enter the values that we want to be able to filter on later. Okay, so we update our filters with here what kind of filter we're using. Let's say it's the user and the value Joe. And so each time the experience is added to the database, we also run this function. And that ends up with, after a while, we'll have this document stored in the database, and the count will, well, it will go up as Joe records more experiences. So we can just publish this filter to the client, and it knows what to display in the filters here on the left-hand side. Questions so far? No? Perfect. Okay, so what happens then when we select the filter? Well, this is one of my favorite findings of Meteor that's not documented. It's this line of code here. It says filters._collection.update. Usually, when we run an update on the client, it also tries to update the data on the server. And it basically says, hey server, may I update this? And the server either says yes or no. But in this case, we don't want to do that because the server doesn't care about what the client selected at the moment. So we want to update the filters without affecting the server. And it turns out that this does exactly that. But it's undocumented and we don't know if it will change, but it's working really nicely now. And I feel confident using it for the time being. Yeah?
Why would you use a session variable for the selection?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And that's one of the pitfalls that I went into. Maybe there's a way that you can do that, but one of the concerns with Meteor is that data might change without the user taking any action. So, for instance, if I have this set of data here to start with, and now the first experience here, the top one here, might be removed by another user connected to the same server. And say that Nevin only recorded one experience, and that was this one. So what happens if we have filtered on Nevin, the user Nevin, and this experience gets removed? Well, if we stored the value of Nevin in a session, and this experience gets removed, well, if this experience gets removed, then this filter should be removed as well. It shouldn't be visible here anymore. But we still have the session value Nevin stored somewhere. So we basically introduced a way, this issue where you can select something and then afterwards you can't deselect it because the value isn't present anymore. Are you following here? Does that answer your question? Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, so the question is if multiple people interacting with the same page at the same time, does that disturb the user experience? Pretty much. Yeah. I guess you'd have to consider that if you run an app where you have lots of people actually changing stuff. In this case, we don't have that issue really. When a new experience is uploaded, it just gets added to the top of the list. And then someone might remove or delete an experience. But that's pretty much the only thing that happens. But when you maybe you have a blog with comments, and someone enters a comment while another user is reading, and everything just moves, that's really disturbing. And I'm not sure how to deal with that in the best way, actually. But it's a very good question. Okay, so when the user clicks a filter, we just update the filters collection, and we do this set selected true. So we know that this particular filter is selected. But that doesn't change anything else than actually selecting the filter. What we want to do now is that the list view should reflect what the user had selected. And to do that, we have to figure out the query that we send to the server and say, hey, we want these new documents now because the user is selecting something else. And again, we can expose this helper function called experiences to our template. And this experiences function does two things. First of all, it calculates the query here, and then it returns the local experiences based on that query. But this query also updates the subscription to the server. So first, we again use the underscore collection.find because this is only locally, and if you'd use filters.find here, it wouldn't update when we change something using this underscore collection method. This is a bit hacky, but yeah, you have to deal with it, kind of. So, well, I won't go into the details of how this is working, but you can look it up later in the blog post if you want to. But basically, this calculates a query that we then subscribe to. So here This is the code that you saw before, but just now I've added this query that's also stored in the session variable. Yeah?
So it's a quick question. So you use underscore collection again in that. If you hadn't used underscore collection, would you not be able to find things with the selected property?
Yes, you would do that, but if you just use the .find method instead of using the underscore collection, this code isn't rerun unless there's a change coming from the server.
Right.
But now that we use the underscore collection, it actually updates when we do changes on the client only. I'm not sure if this is the case still, but it was when I wrote this code, and it's still working, so I'll keep to it. Was that a good answer? Or? Yeah. Okay, so we subscribe to this new query, and we also update our publication function on the server to accept the query and also the limit that we're still sending. And good practice in Meteor is to, whenever the client is sending you stuff, you should check that it's actually what the client or what's expected of the client to send. So this is this little neat check method that Meteor exposes. That says, hey, if the query contains a user value, it should be an object like this, and if it contains a device key, it should be an object like this. And as long as those things are all right, we'll return the experiences that the client requested. Are you with me? Yeah.
What happens if those aren't right?
Then I think what happens is that the server never says that the subscription is ready, and if that's I mean, it's not really an issue if you how do I say this? Well, the only time this shouldn't be working is when someone is doing something malicious, and basically it ends up with the one doing the malicious thing not getting any data. So that's the key thing to take away. But if you design your app right, this shouldn't happen unless someone is mixing it in some way. Okay, so lessons learned from building this filter thing. Data might change without notice. And this is true for most of the things you do in Meteor. You have to really test things with multiple clients doing things at the same time, because otherwise you're not really sure what's going to happen. Yeah, and the other thing is, if you have lots of data, you usually should wait for all of that data to arrive at the client before you start rendering things to your page. But one issue we had with the filters was that the server sent all the filters down to the client, and as each filter arrived at the client, it drew it or attached it to the DOM. Or maybe, I'm not even sure that happened, but the client tried to do something with it. And that happened for each of the filters that arrived. And that just froze the app for 5 or 6 seconds if you had lots of filters. So what you should do is wait until the data actually arrive, then render everything into the DOM. And there are nice ways to do that if you use Iron Router, for example, or yeah, there are good screencasts on how to do that. But it took me a while to understand why everything was just freezing. Okay, so that was that, kind of. Yeah, the infinite scroll. Do you want to hear about the infinite scroll as well? All right, let's go for the infinite scroll. So, it's not a real web app if it doesn't have infinite scroll. It's not a real list view. Before I showed you that you could press this load more button, but you can also just scroll to the bottom of the page and everything gets, it just fetches more documents from the server. And it's actually pretty easy to implement. It's basically just well, this doesn't really have much to do with Meteor. It's just calculating how high the container of the list view is and figure out how far down the user has scrolled. And if they scroll far enough down, we just update the limit, and there you go. The rest is taken care of by Meteor. Okay.
Infinite scroll down.
Yeah, infinite scroll. And yeah, you can have a look at the code later if you want to. It's not rocket science. Okay, do I have any time left, or what's...
If you are done, then that would be an appropriate time to launch into some Q&A.
Yes.
So, no any questions? I have a good question, because I was wandering around. What does Lookback really do? Just it captures the facial, it embeds video in your iOS app, and then it stores that kind of timestamped along with the interactions that they do with your app.
Yeah, well, as the you integrate the SDK into your app, and then you put your device into any user's hand. They say, "Hey, let's try out this app." They press play, or they press start recording, and then we capture the streams from the camera and the screen, and build a video and send it to our servers.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Right. But it's not something you necessarily include in a production app. This is why you're still at the kind of user testing phase.
You can use it in production.
Yeah.
Some of our clients are, and you can kind of hide it away. You can decide how to activate Lookback in your app.
Yeah.
So you can target specific customers. Say, hey, do you want to be part of this test?
Yeah.
Start the recording.
Right. Or you could do some awesome error reporting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your app exploded. Please film what happened.
Yes.
Do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's one of the purposes of Lookback is for bug reporting, both from your clients and also from you can do it in-house or whichever way you like.
Any other questions?
So many questions.
Do you create a Meteor app per client? Because I noticed when we were talking about filters, etc., it didn't seem to have based on different customers. So you create one instance of your Lookback application per client that you deal with.
No, but we do separate them, and that's done when you sign in. We just check what teams you belong to, and each team has different apps. So in the list view here, for the apps, you can see that. So if I'm part of the Anywhere team, I have these apps that I can look at and see the experiences for. But it's all are part of the same Meteor app. We don't do different apps for different companies. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Who do you use for hosting?
Amazon, and it works pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Have you found anything from testing users that has surprised you, from people using your application? Because I imagine it'll give you quite a unique insight into how people interact with it.
Yeah, we're hoping to do that. We're building an archive where you can submit your experiences and say, hey, we found this really interesting pattern that a lot of users seem to follow. Or, hey, we built this stupid bug. Learn from it, don't do it yourself. And we call that our public archive, and it's available here. So you can just see what other people have recorded if they chose to make it public. But otherwise, we don't look at what our clients record, or I mean, we couldn't.
Yeah, are you aware of any kind of facial recognition kind of technologies that can categorize people's expressions?
We've thought about that, and I think there are a couple of companies doing that, but we're not doing it ourselves at the moment. But that will, of course, be really useful. Then you could just say that, yeah, this far into the video, the user got angry. So there's probably an issue here.
Face rage.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, is the backend of your app Meteor as well?
Yeah. everything's
So
Meteor.
they share the database. I mean,
Yeah, everything's Meteor.
So you have a sort of undocumented app that you have that you're
Yes.
sort of subverting how Meteor is supposed to work, but not actually pushing the state back to the server. Does that cause you any issues? Because presumably you have your kind of local copy of the state on the client. This gradually gets out of sync with what the server might sort of think of this collection or whatever you're doing. And the server presumably can push items to you. So is it just a kind of grouping stuff? So you have to keep the state very separate. Or do you have any problems with that at all? Sort of things tripping over each other?
In this case, it actually works in our favor because if the filter, if you change something on the client and the server doesn't know about it, well, if that in this case the filter later is removed from the client, the server just sends a message. Well, the filter with this ID is removed, and the client removes it, and it doesn't care if we have altered it in any way. So that works exactly as we had hoped for. But I figured that you could get into all sorts of trouble if you went too far down this road. But we're not at that point yet. Yeah?
Why would you choose Meteor as opposed to other frameworks?
Basically because I'm lazy, I think. And Meteor does a lot of things for you. Especially the data sync between the clients and the server is so neat. And as soon as I saw that, I just felt that, well, we have to try this. So we've been using it from the start, and much because of that. And also because, well, I didn't have that great of an experience with the other like front-end frameworks, so this seemed like a nice thing to try out. And I think the front-end part of Meteor works really well as well. I think those are the main two reasons.